Did you know Donald Trump once considered buying Greenland? Yes, you heard that right, an entire country. But that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the man who's arguably one of the most polarizing figures in modern history. Donald Trump, business tycoon, reality TV star, and the 45th President of the United States. But who is he really? Beyond the headlines, the controversies, and the larger-than-life persona, lies a man whose life story is filled with jaw-dropping twists, shocking secrets, and untold truths that most people have never even heard of. Let me ask you this. Have you ever wondered what Trump was like before the skyscrapers, the gold-plated penthouses, and the "you're fired" catchphrase? Or what really shaped a man who became a global sensation, for better or worse? Today, we're peeling back the curtain to uncover the untold truths about Donald Trump that will completely change the way you see him. For starters, did you know Trump's early life wasn't as glamorous as you might think? Sure, he grew up in wealth, but his rise to power was anything but smooth. As a young man, he wasn't just chasing business deals. He was fighting tooth and nail to earn respect in a family where success wasn't an option, it was a requirement. And trust me, that pressure left a lasting mark. But here's where things get really interesting. Before he even thought about politics, Trump was already mastering the art of public perception. In the 1980s, he planted fake stories in the press. Yes, fake stories, to build his image as the ultimate self-made billionaire. He even posed as his own publicist under the alias John Barron. Can you imagine that? A future president pretending to be his own PR guy just to control the narrative. And let's talk about his business empire. Most people think of Trump as a real estate mogul who turned Manhattan into his playground. But what if I told you that some of his biggest projects almost didn't happen? There were moments when Trump's empire was on the brink of collapse, buried under mountains of debt. Yet, somehow, he always managed to bounce back. Was it luck, genius, or something else entirely? Stick around, because we're diving deep into those stories. And trust me, they'll leave you stunned. Oh, and we can't ignore Trump's family. Everyone knows the Trumps are a dynasty now, but the dynamics inside that family are far from ordinary. From his father, Fred Trump, who laid the foundation for Donald's success, to the highly publicized yet deeply complex relationships with his children. There's so much more to the story than what you see on Instagram or TV interviews. And then there's his love life. 3 marriages, each more scrutinized than the last, and relationships that have sparked endless tabloid headlines. But behind the glamour, the controversies, and the public feuds lies a personal story that's rarely told. A story of ambition, loyalty, and, at times, betrayal. Still with me? Because it doesn't stop there. What about Trump's time on The Apprentice? It wasn't just a hit TV show, it was a masterclass in branding. Behind the scenes, Trump wasn't just playing a role, he was crafting a persona that would one day catapult him into the White House. But how much of that persona is real, and how much is just for show? And speaking of the White House, what drove Donald Trump to leave his golden towers and step into the most demanding job in the world? Was it patriotism? Ego? Or was it part of a bigger plan that we're just beginning to understand? So, buckle up, because in this video, we're not just exploring the man you think you know. We're uncovering the secrets, the scandals, and the surprising truths about Donald Trump that the world needs to hear. From his rise, to his falls, to his shocking comeback stories. This journey is going to challenge everything you thought you knew about one of the most controversial figures of our time. Are you ready? Let's dive in. So, where were we? Oh yes, peeling back the layers of Donald Trump's untold story. Let's dive deeper, because the man behind the golden doors has even more surprises waiting. Now, let's talk about Trump's first major real estate deal, the one that nearly ended before it even began. In the 1970s, Donald convinced his father, Fred Trump, to invest in a crumbling property in Manhattan, the Commodore Hotel. At the time, New York was in financial ruin, and Manhattan's glamour was fading fast. But Trump saw something others didn't. He envisioned a luxury hotel that would revive not just the building, but the city's image. The challenge? He didn't have the money or the influence to pull it off. What did he do? Trump managed to negotiate one of the biggest tax abatements in New York history, saving millions of dollars in property taxes over several years. He also convinced Hyatt Hotels to partner with him. The result? The Grand Hyatt New York, a shining symbol of Trump's ability to turn risky gambles into massive success. But here's the twist. Many critics argue that this project marked the beginning of Trump's controversial relationship with city officials and tax loopholes. Was it genius, or just another example of bending the rules in his favor? But Trump's ambitions didn't stop there. In the 1980s, he set his sights on Atlantic City, betting big on the casino industry. The Trump Plaza, Trump Marina, and the iconic Trump Taj Mahal were supposed to be monuments to his business empire. And for a while, they were. The Taj Mahal, dubbed the eighth wonder of the world, was a spectacle of excess, complete with gold escalators and crystal chandeliers. But behind the scenes, Trump was taking on enormous debt to fund these ventures. And when Atlantic City's gambling industry declined, so did Trump's fortunes. The casinos filed for bankruptcy, not once, but several times. Yet, somehow, Trump walked away relatively unscathed, leaving investors and creditors to bear the losses. How? By leveraging his brand as collateral. Trump wasn't just a businessman. He was a brand, and he knew how to make that work for him. Speaking of his brand, let's not forget Trump Tower. It's more than just a building. It's a symbol of Donald Trump himself. Completed in 1983, this skyscraper on Fifth Avenue became his crown jewel. But did you know that the building's construction was shrouded in controversy? Reports suggest that undocumented Polish workers were hired to demolish the old Bonwit Teller building to make way for Trump Tower. These workers claimed they were underpaid, and in some cases, not paid at all. The story of Trump Tower's creation is a perfect example of the dual narrative surrounding Trump, one of dazzling success and one of ethical gray areas. Now, let's shift gears and talk about Trump's foray into the world of entertainment. Before The Apprentice, Trump had already built a reputation as a larger-than-life personality, appearing in commercials, cameos, and even professional wrestling. Remember his infamous Battle of the Billionaires feud with WWE's Vince McMahon. It was pure theater. Trump shaved McMahon's head in front of a roaring crowd, but it also cemented his status as a pop culture icon. By the time The Apprentice premiered in 2004, Trump was perfectly positioned to become America's favorite, or most hated, boss. What most people don't know is that The Apprentice didn't just revive his public image, it revived his finances. At the time, Trump was dealing with financial setbacks, and the show gave him a new source of income and influence. Behind the scenes, Trump had final say on how he was portrayed, ensuring that the billionaire boss image remained intact. And then there's his political journey. Contrary to popular belief, Trump didn't just wake up one day and decide to run for president. His flirtation with politics dates back decades. In the late 1980s, he placed full-page ads in major newspapers, calling out U.S. foreign policy and positioning himself as a potential leader. By the 2000s, he was considering running for president under the Reform Party. But what really set the stage for his 2016 campaign? The birther movement. Trump's controversial claims about Barack Obama's birthplace catapulted him back into the spotlight, polarizing the nation but also rallying a base of supporters who saw him as a truth teller. But here's a side of Trump most people don't talk about: his obsession with loyalty. Trump demands it from everyone around him, employees, allies, even family members. Yet, he's also been known to cut ties with people at the slightest sign of disloyalty. Think about Michael Cohen, his former lawyer and fixer. Cohen was once one of Trump's closest confidants, but after their fallout, Cohen became one of Trump's harshest critics. This pattern of loyalty and betrayal is a recurring theme in Trump's life, and it raises an important question. Does Trump truly value loyalty, or does he use it as a tool to maintain control? Let's not forget the international side of Trump's empire. From Scotland to Dubai, Trump's name is emblazoned on luxury properties around the globe. But his international dealings haven't been without controversy. Take his golf course in Scotland, for example. While it's a stunning property, locals have accused Trump of strong-arming them into selling their land and disrupting the environment. And then there's the Trump Organization's dealings in places like Russia and Turkey, which have sparked endless speculation about conflicts of interest. Whether you see Trump as a savvy businessman or a shady dealmaker, one thing is clear: his global footprint is as complex as the man himself. Oh, and we haven't even touched on Trump's relationship with the media. Love him or hate him, Trump knows how to dominate the headlines. From his fiery Twitter rants to his contentious press conferences, he's mastered the art of keeping the spotlight on himself. But this relationship is a double-edged sword. While Trump thrives on media attention, it's also been the source of some of his biggest controversies, from the Access Hollywood tape to his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. Still with me? Because we're just scratching the surface. Trump's story is far from over, and as we dig deeper, the line between myth and reality becomes even blurrier. So, what's next for the man who's been a businessman, a TV star, and a president? Well, stay tuned, because there's so much more to uncover. And yet, even with everything we've uncovered so far, Donald Trump's story only gets more complex. Because behind the headlines and controversies lies a man who has mastered the art of reinvention like no one else. Let's pick up where we left off. We've talked about Trump's business and media dominance, but what about his personal philosophies? One thing Trump has always made clear: in his world, winning is everything. He often quotes his father, Fred Trump, who taught him early on, "You are either a killer or you're nothing." This relentless mindset has shaped every decision he's ever made. Whether it's closing business deals, negotiating political policies, or managing his inner circle, Trump doesn't just aim to win, he aims to dominate. But what happens when someone with a win-at-all-cost mentality is faced with failure? This is where the real story unfolds. Take, for example, the collapse of Trump University. Marketed as a chance for everyday Americans to learn Trump's secrets to wealth, it promised to teach students how to become successful in real estate. The reality? Thousands of participants claimed they were misled by false promises, high-pressure sales tactics, and subpar courses. The lawsuits piled up, and in 2016, Trump was forced to settle for $25 million. Yet, even amid the controversy, Trump managed to spin the narrative, portraying himself as a victim of a politically motivated attack. It's a strategy he's perfected, turning scandals into opportunities to galvanize his base. And speaking of scandals, let's talk about his taxes. For years, Trump built his brand on the idea that he was an ultra-successful billionaire. But when the New York Times released his tax returns, a different story emerged. According to the report, Trump paid only $750 in federal income taxes in 2016 and 2017. Shocking, right? But here's where things take a twist. Instead of shying away from the controversy, Trump doubled down, claiming that his ability to pay so little was proof of his financial genius. In his words, "That makes me smart." Whether you see this as savvy or unethical, it's a perfect example of how Trump flips the script, turning criticism into a badge of honor. And then there's his use of social media, a game changer in modern politics. Trump wasn't just active on platforms like Twitter, he was dominant. His tweets weren't carefully crafted PR messages. They were raw, unfiltered, and often explosive. He used them to bypass traditional media, speak directly to his followers, and control the narrative. But this unorthodox approach also had its consequences. From sparking international incidents to spreading misinformation, Trump's social media presence was as polarizing as the man himself. But let's step back for a moment. Beyond the controversies and the headlines, what truly sets Trump apart? Perhaps it's his ability to connect with his supporters on a deeply emotional level. To his critics, he may seem out of touch, but to his base, he represents something far greater, a symbol of rebellion against the establishment. During his rallies, Trump doesn't just speak, he performs. With his sharp one-liners, improvised anecdotes, and crowd-pleasing catchphrases, he transforms his events into theatrical experiences. For many, attending a Trump rally isn't just political, it's personal, and this connection extends to his branding. From the golden Trump logos adorning his properties to his famous red "Make America Great Again" hats, Trump has turned his name into a symbol of power and ambition. But here's the thing most people overlook. Trump's brand isn't just about luxury, it's about aspiration. It tells people, you, too, can be like me. Love him or hate him, Trump understands something fundamental about human psychology. People want to feel like winners, and Trump sells that feeling better than anyone else. Now, let's delve into his family dynamics. Trump's children, Don Jr., Ivanka, Eric, Tiffany, and Barron, have all played roles in shaping his public image. Ivanka, in particular, has been a key figure in softening Trump's image, often portrayed as a polished, compassionate counterbalance to her father's brash persona. But behind the public appearances lies a family with its own complexities. Trump has been open about his high expectations for his children, famously stating, "If Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her." A comment meant as a joke, but one that sparked endless headlines. And then there's his youngest son, Barron, who has largely stayed out of the spotlight. While the media often speculates about the dynamics between Trump and his children, one thing is clear: loyalty is the glue that holds the family together. But how much of this loyalty is genuine, and how much is a product of Trump's relentless drive to maintain control? As we dig deeper, we can't ignore Trump's polarizing leadership style. To his supporters, he's a no-nonsense, results-driven leader who speaks his mind. To his critics, he's a divisive figure who thrives on chaos. One moment that perfectly captures this duality is Trump's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. While some praise his swift action in banning travel from China, others criticize his downplaying of the virus and the mixed messages from his administration. The result? A deeply divided nation grappling with an unprecedented crisis. But perhaps the most intriguing aspect of Trump's story is his resilience. No matter how many scandals, bankruptcies, or controversies come his way, Trump has an uncanny ability to bounce back. Think about it. How many other public figures could survive the sheer volume of negative press he's faced? Whether it's his relentless optimism, his refusal to admit defeat, or his knack for turning adversity into opportunity, Trump's resilience is nothing short of remarkable. And yet, the question remains, what drives Donald Trump? Is it power, legacy, or is it something more personal? A desire to prove his doubters wrong? One thing's for sure, Trump's journey is far from over. Whether he's building new business ventures, shaping political movements, or simply staying in the spotlight, Donald Trump is a man who refuses to be ignored. As we unravel more layers of his story, one truth becomes clear. Donald Trump isn't just a person, he's a phenomenon. A man whose life has been a whirlwind of triumphs, controversies, and reinventions. And love him or hate him, one thing's for sure, the world will never stop talking about Donald Trump. And just when you think you've seen every side of Donald Trump, another layer of his story emerges, one that's equally fascinating and controversial. From navigating his post-presidency years to his lasting influence on American politics and global discourse, Trump's narrative continues to unfold in ways that are anything but predictable. Let's start with an area many people overlook: Trump's approach to global relationships. Love him or hate him, his presidency was defined by a series of unconventional, often shocking diplomatic moves. Take his meetings with North Korea's Kim Jong-un, for example. Trump became the first sitting US president to step foot in North Korea. To some, it was a groundbreaking moment of diplomacy. To others, it was a dangerous gamble that lent legitimacy to a ruthless regime. But one thing is clear, Trump's approach to foreign policy wasn't about following the rules. It was about rewriting them. And speaking of rewriting the rules, let's talk about his decision-making style. Throughout his career, Trump has relied heavily on his instincts, often dismissing traditional advice from experts or advisors. Whether it was his unorthodox campaign strategy, his policy decisions, or his handling of high-stakes negotiations, Trump has always trusted his gut. This has led to both spectacular successes and highly publicized failures. But here's the twist. Even when his instincts lead him astray, Trump never admits defeat. Instead, he reframes a narrative, positioning himself as a disruptor fighting against the odds. But what happens when the disruptor becomes a target? Trump's post-presidency years have been marked by legal battles, ongoing investigations, and a deeply divided public opinion. From accusations of financial misconduct to allegations about his role in the January 6th Capitol riots, Trump has faced a barrage of challenges. And yet, despite the mounting pressure, his support base remains fiercely loyal. Why? Because Trump has mastered the art of playing the underdog, a role that resonates deeply with millions of Americans who feel overlooked and marginalized. Let's dig deeper into this loyalty. For Trump's supporters, he isn't just a politician. He's a symbol of resistance against a system they believe is broken. Whether it's his America First rhetoric, his promises to drain the swamp, or his attacks on the so-called fake news media, Trump has tapped into a wellspring of frustration and anger. But this connection goes beyond politics. For many, Trump represents a cultural shift, a rebellion against political correctness and the traditional establishment. But there's another side to this story, the opposition. For Trump's critics, he's a figure who has deepened divides, fueled misinformation, and undermined democratic norms. The debates surrounding his presidency, his policies, and his legacy are some of the most heated in modern history. And these debates aren't just confined to the United States. They've sparked global conversations about leadership, populism, and the future of democracy. Now, let's talk about Trump the businessman, post-presidency edition. After leaving the White House, Trump returned to his roots, focusing on his business empire and media ventures. The Trump Organization, which had faced significant scrutiny during his presidency, became a central focus once again. But here's where things take an interesting turn. Trump didn't just stick to real estate. He launched new ventures, including his own social media platform, Truth Social. Frustrated with what he called censorship on mainstream platforms, Trump created Truth Social as an alternative space for free speech, though it quickly became a lightning rod for controversy. And then there's his enduring influence on the Republican Party. Even after leaving office, Trump remains a kingmaker within the GOP. His endorsements can make or break political careers, and his rallies continue to draw massive crowds. But this influence comes with its own set of challenges. Within the Republican Party, a rift has formed between those who remain loyal to Trump and those who want to move the party in a new direction. This internal struggle has reshaped the political landscape in ways we're still trying to understand. But let's shift gears for a moment. Beyond the politics and the business deals, there's a personal side to Trump that's rarely discussed. For all his bravado and showmanship, Trump has moments of vulnerability, moments where the man behind the public persona comes into focus. One of these moments came during his mother Mary Trump's funeral. By all accounts, Trump was deeply affected by her death, describing her as a driving force behind his ambition. It's a side of Trump we don't often see, but one that adds depth to his complex character. Another fascinating aspect of Trump's story is his connection to pop culture. Over the years, Trump has been a fixture in movies, TV shows, and even music. From his cameo in Home Alone 2 to countless mentions in rap songs, Trump has transcended politics and business to become a cultural icon. But this fame comes with its own challenges. As much as is celebrated, he's also become a symbol of controversy, someone who evokes strong emotions, both positive and negative. And we can't ignore the way Trump has changed the media landscape. His presidency gave rise to an entirely new style of political coverage, one that's faster, more polarized, and more focused on personalities and policies. Trump himself once said, "The media needs me. Without me, they'd have nothing to talk about." And in many ways, he's right. Whether you agree with him or not, Trump knows how to command attention. But what about the future? Trump has hinted at a potential political comeback, teasing a possible 2024 presidential run. If he decides to re-enter the race, it would undoubtedly be one of the most watched and polarizing campaigns in history. But even if Trump doesn't run, his influence will continue to shape the political and cultural landscape for years to come. As we near the end of this deep dive, one thing becomes clear. Donald Trump is a man of contradictions. He's a billionaire who appeals to working-class voters, a politician who thrives on chaos, and a public figure who both fascinates and divides. His story is far from over, and whether you see him as a hero, a villain, or something in between, one thing's for sure. Donald Trump's legacy will be debated for generations. So, as we wrap up this chapter, ask yourself, who is Donald Trump to you? A disruptor? A visionary? Or a figure who changed the game in ways we're still trying to understand? Whatever your answer, one thing's certain. Donald Trump's story is one that the world will never stop talking about. So here we are, the final chapter of this incredible journey into the untold truths about Donald Trump. And yet, it feels like the story is still being written. Why? Because Trump is not just a man. He's a movement, a phenomenon, and a mirror reflecting the deepest divisions and dreams of our society. Let's bring it all together with a powerful climax that leaves you questioning, inspired, and maybe even a little unsettled. What makes Donald Trump such a compelling figure is not just his accomplishments or controversies, but the scale of his impact. Think about it. He's changed how we talk about politics, how we view leadership, and even how we consume media. But here's the kicker. Whether you agree with him or not, his influence has created ripples that go far beyond the United States. Trump is not just an American story. He's a global phenomenon. Take, for instance, his relationship with the concept of power. To Trump, power isn't just about position. It's about perception. He once said, Sometimes by losing a battle, you find a new way to win the war. And if you trace his journey, you'll see this philosophy in action. Every setback, a failed business venture, a scandal, a legal challenge, has been reframed as a stepping stone. Trump has a unique ability to turn losses into lessons and lessons into leverage. It's a quality that's as admirable as it is controversial. But here's the question we can't ignore. Is Trump's resilience rooted in strategy, or is it sheer audacity? Let's consider one of his boldest moves, his refusal to follow conventional norms. From refusing to release his tax returns as a presidential candidate to breaking decades of diplomatic protocol, Trump has rewritten the rule book at every turn. And while this has earned him both praise and criticism, one thing's for sure: Trump doesn't just play the game, he changes it. And this brings us to the climax of his legacy, the unprecedented storm he unleashed on January 6, 2021. The Capitol riots shocked the world, marking a moment of chaos that will be analyzed for generations. Was it the culmination of Trump's rhetoric, or was it a reflection of deeper issues within American society? That question remains at the heart of debates about his legacy. But what's undeniable is that this event marked a turning point, not just for Trump but for the entire nation. Yet, even as the dust settles, Trump remains undeterred. His post-presidency era has been anything but quiet. From launching his Truth Social platform to rallying his base for a potential 2024 comeback, Trump continues to defy expectations. And that's the thing about him. Just when you think you've seen it all, he finds a way to surprise you. But let's zoom out for a moment. Beyond the politics, the controversies, and the headlines, what can we learn from Donald Trump's story? Whether you admire him or criticize him, there's no denying that Trump embodies a certain kind of human spirit. The relentless pursuit of ambition, the refusal to back down, and the belief in one's ability to shape their destiny. It's a double-edged sword, of course, but it's also what makes his story so captivating. And now, it's your turn. Yes, you. Because this isn't just a story about Donald Trump, it's a story about us. About the kind of leaders we choose, the values we prioritize, and the narratives we believe. Trump may be one of the most polarizing figures of our time, but his rise and influence reflects something deeper about the world we live in. So, let me ask you, what do you think Trump's legacy will be? Will he be remembered as a visionary who shattered the status quo, or as a divisive figure who left the world more fractured than he found it? The truth is, history is still being written, and your perspective matters. But don't just keep those thoughts to yourself. Share them. Engage in conversations. Challenge your own beliefs. Because if there's one thing we can all learn from Donald Trump, it's the power of speaking up and owning your narrative. And here's where you come in. If this video made you think, if it challenged your perspective or opened your eyes to something new, don't stop here. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another deep dive like this. Trust me, there's so much more to uncover, and you don't want to miss what's coming next. Oh, and one more thing. Drop a comment below and tell us, what's the one untold truth about Donald Trump that shocked you the most? Was it his early life struggles, his business gambles, or his unprecedented approach to politics? Or maybe it's something else entirely. Whatever it is, we want to hear from you. And before you go, here's a challenge. Share this video with someone who has a completely different perspective on Trump than you do. Whether they love him, hate him, or feel completely indifferent, start a conversation. Because at the end of the day, understanding each other's perspectives is how we grow. Remember, this isn't just a video, it's a movement to dig deeper, question more, and explore the stories that shape our world. So let's keep the momentum going. Because if there's one thing we've learned from Donald Trump, it's that the story is never over. There's always another chapter, another twist, and another truth waiting to be uncovered. So, what's next? Well, that's up to you. Because the power to shape the narrative is in your hands. And trust me, the journey ahead is going to be just as thrilling, surprising, and impactful as the story we've just uncovered. Until next time, stay curious, stay bold, and stay engaged. The untold truths are out there, and together, we're going to find them. See you in the next video.